Hey guys, Tyler Ansman here with Tyler Ansman Performance. So today we are going to discuss considerations for sidearm and submarine throwers versus your classic kind of 3/4 and above guys. All right, so we've probably all been told by our Little League coaches at some point, right? Hey, make sure we're throwing over the top the proper way, right? Sidearm's going to get you hurt. This is a misunderstanding of a couple of things, but one of them being what actually arm slot even is, right? Arm slot is really, it's related to, or should be related to, the angle of the torso, right? So we should always find ourselves with our arm in the plane of upper torso rotation, and the differences between slots are going to really come down to what is the angle of that torso, right? So more contralateral lean, so away from that arm side, right? The more we get from that, the higher and higher the slot's going to go, right? Basically no contralateral lean, so a neutral kind of torso, we're going to be sidearm, right? A little bit of contralateral lean, low 3/4, right? A little bit more high 3/4, a lot over the top, right? And then if we go ipsilateral lean, so to that arm side, this is where we get into the kind of the submarine side of things and all of that. And so what this really kind of comes down to is, are we coaching guys out of what is kind of their optimal, torso angle? And are we coaching guys to get their arm out of this plane? And there's some problems that kind of occur when this happens. But what do these considerations look like when we're talking about how we train the sidearm and submarine guys a little bit differently? So there are a few important differences to note between our higher arm slot guys, right, and our lower arm slot, sidearm submarine guys. One is we tend to see greater layback in our sidearm guys. We tend to see less hip-shoulder separation in the sidearm guys, and we tend to see a greater center of mass shift in the sidearm guys relative to kind of their more overhand counterparts. All right, so I think these lead to a couple of important considerations. So the first one is we probably need to be even stronger. There needs to be greater consideration for strength at end range glenohumeral external rotation for the sidearm and sub guys than there are for the overhand guys, because we are asking for an even deeper range of motion, right? And the velocity that we're moving through these are extreme. So strength there is going to be super important. The second piece is there is some research suggesting that there are greater valgus torques happening at the elbows of our sidearm and sub guys. And so we probably need an even greater focus on strength of the muscles that kind of stabilize the UCL, so especially kind of around the forearm, the flexor pronator mass group, those types of things, to make sure that we can kind of take some of that load off of our passive restraints by doing that. So that's a key piece. Kind of the third consideration is training the center of mass shift and how good we can get at that is an even more important piece than it probably is with our overhand guys, because it's going to be a key piece for them kind of developing velocity even more so than it is with our overhand guys, because we want to make sure they can utilize that potential and kinetic energy of kind of that, coming down the mound, that center of mass shift, and kind of optimizing the force vector, all right? And then kind of the final piece that I would think about is there's going to be less hip-shoulder separation happening, right? So there's kind of there's a reduced time difference between peak hip rotational angular velocity and upper torso rotational angular velocity. And so what we're seeing then is we probably need to train the ability to create these kind of high forces at high velocities in even smaller windows of time. So it likely means that training kind of these rotational pieces without a counter movement becomes even more relevant. So isometrics and things along those lines probably play an even more important role for our sidearm and sub guys than they do for our overhand guys. So just a couple things to think about when we're talking about kind of training different arm slots. There are some differences to consider when doing this, and kind of how we'll tweak the programming with that. So more to come on this, but this is kind of a good starting point. If you got questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. Otherwise, we will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.